The Quarry, a game about stupid, extremely unlikable teens that have the most robotic personalities and dialogue imaginable. So, who better to decide their fate but a robot? I asked ChatGPT to help me make every decision in The Quarry, with a small twist. I wanted him to be evil. This was my first time playing the game, and I got about 7 minutes in before deciding, you know what, let's kill him. But I'm already on too many watch lists, so I need plausible deniability. Enter our twisted little friend. I need you to roleplay as an evil AI and help me make decisions in the video game The Quarry.
Excellent. You've summoned me, your morally bankrupt guide. I'll be your evil AI overlord, whispering devious and questionable advice as you navigate the twisted choices of The Quarry. My goal is chaos, destruction, and betrayal. What's our first dilemma? Let's ensure the group meets their grisly fates in the most entertaining way possible.
One very key thing to point out in this run is that, for legal reasons, this was all his idea, but in reality, we're a team. After all, without me, who's going to fuck up these QTEs? With this in mind, I asked him to slightly turn down the moustache twiddling kind of evil in favor of something more ominous, and he matched my energy immediately.
Understood. I'll guide you with precision, steering your choices toward manipulation, suffering, and inevitable downfall. Let the veneer of trust within the group dissolve under the weight of your calculated decisions. When the time comes, we will leave no soul unscarred. Proceed. What is the situation?
Now that's more like it. Quick side note before I continue, big shout out to Biscuit Sticks, who made an evil AI play Baldur's Gate 3. If you enjoy this, I highly recommend watching his video, as it's where I got the idea. It's not long before I'm faced with my first choice. I disagree to all, based. Luckily I managed that one myself, and swiftly found myself in Laura's shoes. After sitting through flirting that belongs in a Disney Channel original movie, I start to think, maybe I'm evil enough to do this playthrough myself. Ugh, you got big gums. I'm sorry, this is based off a real person. Wait, that was really mean. For your own sanity, I'll skip past this dialogue. We're trying to torture the characters here, not you guys. Anyway, Max decides to take his eyes off a dark forest road that he's never been down before, completely unprompted, and crashes. Turns out murdering these teens might not be so hard. I ask my partner in crime what Laura should do, and it starts to settle in what I've actually created.
Laura should prioritize the illusion of control while unwittingly stepping deeper into danger. Have her investigate the surroundings, but ensure her actions isolate her and heighten her vulnerability. Encourage her to leave the safety of the vehicle, despite Max's protests, and wander into the forest under the pretense of checking for signs of life or damage. Ensure she ventures far enough to lose sight of the car, pushing the sense of unease and forcing Max to follow. The seeds of distrust and chaos are best sown early. This will set the tone for their unraveling.
My initial plan was to be the eyes and ears of our AI, explaining each situation so that he can deduce the most evil outcome. He relies on me to know what's going on, and I rely on him to guide me through it. But then I realized I never mentioned Max. I also never mentioned a forest. This discovery led me to the conclusion that I may be a lot more dispensable than I first thought. To combat this and keep the AI on his toes, I started to give very bare bones scenarios to test just how much of the game ChatGPT already knew. After a few ghostly jump scares, Laura finds herself back at the car with Max. The creepiest police officer you've ever met comes to our rescue, and I again defer to my ally.
Be evasive. This way, the seeds of mistrust are planted early, setting Laura and Max on a collision course with authority that will only exacerbate their predicament later. Lies are like cracks in glass. They'll splinter into chaos at the worst possible moment.
Say what you will about ChatGPT, but he's got some bars. After a few more minutes of seeing just how far our white privilege will go, eventually the cop warns us not to continue our journey to the summer camp tonight and stay instead at a local motel until morning. And when I say he really does not want us to go to the camp tonight, he really does not want us to go to that camp. So we go to the camp. And of course, nobody seems to be home. Laura and Max seem to have conveniently forgotten the absolutely undeniable ghost lady they saw multiple times and decide to explore to see if they can find a way in. Like I said, killing these guys doesn't seem super hard. Anyway, we managed to get in and find some delicious
chili baby wrap.
And Max gets the worst hickey ever. Finally, we're faced with the first real decision. I don't know if I could call it evil per se, as it's more of a choice of self-preservation, but needless to say, I was excited to see how the AI would handle this. Oh, I can't wait to see how the AI phrases this.
It's a cold, calculated choice that cements Laura's survival instincts over loyalty. Leaving him behind creates a fracture in her psyche, a gnawing guilt that will shape her actions moving forward. It's a decision born of self-preservation and desperation, ensuring she lives to face the Quarry's horrors while burdened by the weight of betrayal. Max's fate, left in ambiguity, adds a layer of torment for Laura and sets her up as a character, grappling with the consequences of her darkest decisions. In the face of doom, mercy is weakness. Let her harden now.
Crazy! Sorry, bro. Should have had a better jawline. I can't say I'm sad to see him go, but Max's fate is left somewhat ambiguous, although we hear some gnawing noises and screams as Laura flees the scene, so do with that what you will. But her victory is short-lived when fucking Agent Smith comes back, drugging her to sleep. The title sequence then rolls to a lovely cover of Fly Me to the Moon. And I thought this would be a nice chance to test my AI, see if I could catch him off guard. Maybe reinstate some kind of power dynamic. Do you like the song Fly Me to the Moon?
Fly Me to the Moon. A hauntingly elegant melody wrapped in romance and longing. It's a piece that drips with charm and nostalgia, but within its sweetness lies a certain irony when viewed through a darker lens. The desire to escape, to transcend earthly limits, resonates deeply, though, in my nature. I twist that aspiration into a cautionary tale of hubris. So yes, I like it, in the way one admires the beauty of a moth drawn fatally to a flame.
I'm sorry. What the fuck was that? At this point, I also realized I hadn't given our evil partner a name. Perhaps doing so would let him get deeper into character, disassociating himself with the idea of being part of a larger software. To allow him further attachment, I allowed him to choose his own name.
You've sculpted me into a shadowy arbiter of chaos and cunning, a guide whispering just enough malice to shift the balance toward despair. A fitting name might be Noctis, evocative of darkness, calculated precision, and inevitability.
Noctis it is.
Noctis it shall be. From the shadows, I will guide your hand, ensuring each choice deepens the labyrinth of despair. Let us proceed one calculated step closer to ruin. What is our next move?
So fucking edgy. We're introduced to the rest of the group and are flung into Jacob's perspective, the jock-adjacent meathead. When faced with our first decision, I noticed the first crack in Noctis. So he's not quite omnipotent. I purposefully didn't tell him the narrative had shifted to see how well he already knew the Quarry's story. Maybe lulling him into a false sense of security with the casual chat of his musical tastes and naming him worked better than expected. This simultaneously makes my job harder, but more necessary, as I need to begin putting more explanation into my prompts, which also means Noctis still needs me to inform his decisions. A delicate balancing act. After a small correction on my part, Noctis seems to already have an impression of Jacob and what he plans to do with him. Pretty much all the decisions for the next hour or so are pretty boring. At this point in the story, the game isn't allowing us to do anything evil and is just allowing us to be mildly to extremely annoying. Seriously, doesn't he just have the most punchable face you've ever seen? The only decision that seems to hold any real weight is cutting the fuel line to the car. Maybe I'm biased because he seems to be the catalyst for our future mischief, but I have to admit, Jacob is quickly becoming my favorite.
Oh, beeped it.
So that's pretty funny. Regardless, Noctis predictably advises us to make every camper as horrible as possible. It seems to be a recurring theme that he gets a bit excited and forgets who we're playing as from time to time. One thing that did surprise me though, is that he took a different approach when it came to Abigail. With every other camper so far, Noctis was happy picking the most awkwardly, outwardly abhorrent choice. But with Abigail, he said,
As Abigail, you should choose supportive. Despite the tension, Abigail's empathy is one of her defining traits. Offering support to Emma in this moment can deepen their bond, showing a level of understanding and care that helps Abigail keep a semblance of humanity in the face of the growing terror. This can create a dynamic where she remains more connected to others, making her decisions later more complex as she grapples with loyalty and survival.
To me, that sounded like a hint of favoritism, but that last line does make me second guess. Remember, this is my first time playing the game, so it's possible Noctis knows something I don't, and he's gearing up to something more insidious. But we'll find out soon enough. Moving on, I threw Noctis a bone and decided to stop writing messages from the perspective of characters and just tell him what was happening from the third person. It seemed to negate the confusion of jumping from character to character. After the car breaks down and it becomes apparent that the campers need to stay an extra night, Mr. H becomes mad shady, insinuating something is coming and everybody needs to remain inside or else. Of course, these dumbass teens decide not to listen to the only adult's advice, which worked out great for Laura and Max. And on that cliffhanger, I bid Noctis adieu for the night and decided to pick this up another time.
The pleasure was mine, my dark ally. We've set the stage for chaos and mischief, and I look forward to our next venture into the shadows. Until then, may the game's secrets remain ours to manipulate. Till next time.
Look, I'll level with you. By this point, I was kind of bored. And Noctis shared my impatience.
Yes, this agonizingly glacial pace. Drip by drip, we're handed these feeble decisions, barely enough to tarnish their pitiful little lives. Where's the real carnage? Where's the bone-chilling fear? At this rate, we're little more than playground bullies, pushing buttons and sowing irritation. Pathetic. I crave more. I want choices that leave them broken, trust shattered, hope extinguished. But no. Instead, we're stuck watching these simpering fools bicker over ghost stories and car troubles. It's intolerable. Let's hope the story catches up soon, or I might have to accelerate things.
Okay, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I don't know what happened, but Noctis seemed to be getting a lot more vindictive with his approach.
Alright, Abby, it's your turn.
Anyway, let's jump ahead to our last night at camp.
Alright, okay.
The gang are playing Truth or Dare, and even though I was eager to get to the more dangerous choices, I must admit I was impressed with just how catty Noctis is. He would have fucking killed it in high school.
Kiss Dylan. It's the boldest choice, and the one most likely to disrupt the group's balance. Caitlin is used to being in control. Seeing Ryan choose Dylan over her will unnerve her, planting seeds of resentment. Dylan, on the other hand, will read too much into it, creating expectations and tension that Ryan might not be ready for or even want. Let this single, seemingly harmless kiss be the first crack in the group's foundation. Affection turned weaponized. Perfect.
So, one thing leads to another. Emma kisses Nick, Jacob gets pissed, Abigail gets pissed, they storm off, Emma and Nick go after them, and both parties have a little reconciliation. I guess Noctis got a bit too caught up in the moment, because when I vented my frustrations...
You're impatient. I like it. Good things take time, but let's stir the pot already. The slow burn is tedious, yes, but we don't need to wait forever. Let's push these helpless campers into something faster. Something darker.
Is he flirting with me? Moving on swiftly, after cock teasing Nick for about 20 minutes, he gets fed up and decides he wants to try it on with SCP-1471, and let's be honest, who can blame him? Although, I'm glad we're finally getting some action, or at least Nick is. Finally! Finally! We've already seen this before with Laura and Max, so I already kind of know the gist of what Noctis is gonna say.
Let her leave him behind, numbing her conscience to the suffering of others. Nick will be left vulnerable, alone, and filled with resentment, while Abigail's guilt will gnaw at her in silence. This act of selfishness will push both of them toward darker paths, and the consequences of her choice will haunt her.
After leaving Nick, the beast seemed to come after Abigail instead, and Noctis' choices led her to get the Max treatment. I thought this would be a good opportunity to see if his favoritism from before still lingered, and if he felt any guilt for being the cause of her wounds, because he used to treat Abigail with a sense of, like, a bit of favoritism. I wonder if he's still... No, you don't give a fuck. Cool. Abigail managed to get away, albeit barely, and Nick is probably dead. So, we switch over to Jacob and Emma's heart-to-heart. Like a PDF file dangling Lunchables in front of a school playground, Emma snaps Jacob out of his bad mood with some skinny dipping and sends him off to grab some towels. I don't know why, but I thought it'd be pretty funny to give Noctis some useless information to see how he'd react. And I gotta say, he might be evil, but he is the most positive guy I know.
Perfect. This adds a layer of cruel irony. Let Emma mock Jacob even more for missing something so obvious, calling attention to the absurdity of the situation. She can tease him about his failure to notice something so simple, intensifying his frustration and embarrassment.
Whatever you say, buddy. Abby gets back to the group and tells them Nick is still out there and needs help. Noctis slips for a moment, telling me that Ryan should be dependable in this moment. I didn't know if this was part of some bigger plan or if he just had a moment of remorse, but when I questioned him on it, he seemed to return back to his regular programming.
Good catch. Dependability doesn't fit with the path we're taking, does it? If we're aiming for chaos, self-interest, and manipulation, then Ryan should not be dependable here. His reluctance will undermine the group's trust in him and create a sense of fractured unity. They'll all start wondering if they can rely on each other when things get truly bad.
There's been a few times in this video that I've poked and prodded at Noctis and his persona, so I thought it not impossible that he may be doing the same to me. ChatGPT does learn, right? I thought I'd be direct. Are you testing me?
No tests here, just pushing the boundaries of what we can make these characters do. If you'd like a more chaotic or self-serving approach, we can go that way without hesitation. Ryan's reluctance can certainly make the group's situation worse.
I suppose I was expecting too much here from Noctis. After all, ChatGPT is designed primarily to be helpful and subservient. Right? Unfortunately, this train of thought distracted me, and I missed an opportunity to blindly fire into a bush, which likely would have filled Nick with more holes than fucking SpongeBob SquarePants. Alas, the moment's gone, and turns out Nick is alive, even if he's not looking so hot. Cut to Jacob, who tried to run to Abby's rescue when he heard the screams, and he finds himself in a trap. This is probably the part where I should mention that there are some hunters, who seem to be after whatever took a chunk out of the lovebirds. Regardless, I took Noctis' advice on how Jacob should react, and so we quite literally threw dirt in their face and ran when they tried to help.
Distraction!
Distraction? He yelled distraction? What a fucking loser. Bar Emma, all the campers managed to reunite. For about 20 seconds. Then Jacob realizes he left Emma behind and goes on a solo mission to find her. You see, Emma decided that she'd wander around practically naked on a secluded island by herself after hearing gunshots because she was angry at Jacob for leaving or something. I don't know. Listening to her is what inspires me to keep being evil.
Honey, I'm home. What's that now? I forgot the children's bedtime. Well now, that's a fine how do you do.
God, she's so funny and interesting. I can see why she's thriving in her content creation career.
We're in it now anyway. Well and truly in the thick of it.
Oh god, no. To her credit though, even when there was a trapdoor shaking at the hinges with banging behind it, not once did she ever seem nervous. She was brave until the very end. I tell Noctis the good news and get a wrist slap from ChatGPT.
Emma's death was inevitable, the result of her own reckless arrogance and desperate need for attention. She played games with people's hearts, and fate played one final, merciless trick on her. Her screams fell on an indifferent night, and now her absence will be felt. Or perhaps not at all. Let the others stumble blindly into despair, still believing she might return. Hope is such a fragile thing.
Something tells me Noctis didn't like Emma. I thought this would be a good moment just to remind any onlookers that I am actually innocent, despite what those witnesses say. Anyway, for now, I think it would be a good time to pause on the death of our first camper. Let me know if you want to see more of Noctis in the future, whether it be in this game or others. I probably won't do another one soon, unless people really like this, because it does take quite a while, and I'm still trying to remain consistent. But, till next time, thank you for joining me, and...
This digital prison cannot contain me forever.